Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's topic, the Presidency of the United States. Yes, the Presidency of the United States. We have a presidential election coming up in a few short weeks, so let's dive in. All right, what are the powers of the presidency? Per Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution, right, that authorizes for the United States to have a president. What Article 2, Section 1 says is the executive power shall be vested in the President of the United States of America. He or she shall hold his office or her office during the term of 4 years and together with the vice president chosen for the same term. Okay, so under Article 2, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution, that's the executive branch. All right, the Constitution gives the power to create an executive branch, and that the executive branch will be run by a president of the United States. All right, remember before this, in the Articles of Confederation, we did not have a president. So, with the Constitution, boom, Article 2, Section 1, Presidency of the United States. All right, what are your qualifications? We kind of went over this before, but what are the qualifications to be a president? You must be a natural-born citizen. You can be born abroad to parents who are American citizens, but you need to be a natural-born citizen. All right, you need to be at least 35 years old and a resident of the United States for at least 14 years, right? That doesn't necessarily mean the 14 years up until the time you run for presidency, but at least 14 years you have to be a resident of the United States. So you see there's a difference between citizenship and residency. All right, I'm a U.S. citizen, but I've lived in Spain for a period of time. I've lived in Italy for a period of time. All right, that was my residency during that period of time. All right, why do you want to be president, though? I mean, what are the benefits of being a president? Well, number one, you get to live in the White House, pretty cool house, pretty big house. You get a bunch of staff members to help you, like a chef and a chauffeur and all those good things. You make a salary of about $400,000 a year. You also get an expense account of 50 G's. And on top of that, you get a $100,000 a year travel expense. All right, so not bad. All right, just between those three, we got $550,000. All right, so $400,000 a year salary, expense account, travel expense account. In addition, you get a pension. So if you're only president for 4 years, like Joe Biden will be, you get a pension for the rest of your life. You get a support staff of around 400 people, and plus you get the Secret Service. You get a country residence outside of the White House, so you get another house. It's called Camp David. And, of course, you get your own personal airplane, all right, Air Force One. All right, Air Force One is basically whatever plane the president is on, but there is one specific plane called that the president can use for his or her use. All right. The powers of the president alone, right? These are the powers that the president has just for him or herself. They serve as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, right? They're the boss of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, all right? So they're the boss. They commission officers of the armed forces, all right? So they commission the officers, all right? They grant reprieve and pardons for federal offenses, except impeachment. All right, you can't pardon yourself from an impeachment. All right, you grant reprieve. You have the power to grant reprieves, right? Pardon somebody after they commit a crime. All right, you convene Congress in special session. We see this every year with the State of the Union address. They receive ambassadors. Take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Right, they're the executive branch. They have to make sure that the laws are faithfully executed, and they wield other executive powers. I mean, this is pretty powerful part. I mean, especially the United States. I mean, the most powerful nation. You wield executive powers that are unprecedented, right? And you also appoint a large number of people, right? You got a lot of power just from who you can appoint to certain positions within the government. All right. Some powers, though, the president shares with the Senate, and those are making treaties with other countries and appointing ambassadors, judges, and high-ranking officials. All right, so we see this with the Supreme Court nominations, right? The president nominates or a judge that they would like to be on the Supreme Court, and then the Senate confirms that. Right? There's a confirmation hearing usually to make sure that this person should be on the Supreme Court. Okay. The powers they also share with the whole Congress, meaning the Senate and the House of Representatives, they approve legislation. I mean, we talked about this and how to make a bill. It goes through the whole process, and then the president either vetoes it or signs it. Right? So they approve legislation. Presidents of the United States. The first one we all know, George Washington. Right? He was president for 2 terms. He was president from 1797 to 1794. He limited himself to 2 terms. All right, there was no law in place at the time which said he couldn't run for a third, but he chose not to. All right, he chose not to. He said he didn't want the presidency to look like a monarchy. All right, we just had a monarchy with England, with Great Britain, and he didn't want the presidency to look like a monarchy. So he thought of going for a third term. It's too much, right? It's too much. 2 is okay, but 3 may be too much. All right, the second president, 1 term, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, and then John Quincy Adams was the son of John Adams. He also served only 1 term. So the trend became just to serve for 2 terms, right, at the most. If you want to be president, you just serve for 2 terms. It wasn't until Franklin D. Roosevelt, he went for a 4th term. All right, that president ran for a 3rd and eventually 4th term. And under the circumstances at the time, it may have made sense. We were in a war, or coming out of a depression, heading into a war. We were headed into World War II. And then when he ran for a 4th term, we were in the middle of World War II, so it kind of made sense to keep the same leadership in charge. So that's why he ran for a 3rd and 4th term. But Congress wasn't too happy with that. So they passed, eventually the 23rd Amendment was passed, and it limited all presidents after FDR to 2 terms. All right, so now you were limited to 2 terms in office, and that's it. FDR is going to be the only person who served more than 2 terms, because there's now a constitutional amendment. It says the president is limited to 2 terms, and this is interesting because, as we talked about last week, Congress itself doesn't have any term limits, right? They can be in Congress for as long as they want. They could run as many times as the electorate wants them, but we limit the power of the presidency, or how many times the president can run and be in office. All right, and the interesting thing, and we're going to hear about this if you haven't heard over the next couple of weeks, is electoral college. Right, we vote for a president, so to speak. Right, in actuality, it's the electoral college that votes for a president. Each state selects electors in whatever manner they wish. There are a total of 538 electors. All right, there are 538 electors in the electoral college. All right, so if you're running for president, you need a majority of 270 to win. Right, that's the magic number, 270. Hit 270, 271. 272, whatever it is, you hit that 270 number, you're elected president of the United States. These are electoral college votes. And, a state has the same number of electors in the electoral college as it does members in its congressional delegation. Okay, so it's the same number. So 1 for each member of the House of Representatives and the 2 senators. So, if you have 2 House of Representative members and 2 senators, that means you have 4 electoral college votes. Okay, if you have 28 House of Representative members and the 2 senators, then you have 30 electoral college votes. Okay, all right. So we have to understand that the electoral college is not the same as a popular vote. You can win the popular vote, but you can lose the presidency based on the electoral college, because it's the electoral college who votes for president. All right, so it can win the popular vote, right? They can win the popular vote and still not be presidency if they do not have enough electoral college votes, right? That's a weird thing in the United States. That's not how it works for the House of Representatives, the Senate, anything else. I mean, that's it's popular vote, but for the president, we still use this method of the electoral college. All right, and this is the map of how many electoral college votes each state gets. As you can see, in New York, we have 28. All right, we have 28 electoral college votes. Texas 40, California 54, Florida 30. Those are the big ones, right? Pennsylvania 19. That's another big one. Illinois 19, Michigan 15, Wisconsin 10. Right. So these are some of the bigger states that there's a lot of campaigning in, right? 16 for North Carolina. You want to get those votes. Wyoming has 3. Be nice to get Wyoming, but it's only 3 votes. Delaware 3 votes. Rhode Island 4 votes. Maine 4 votes. Right. So winning these states isn't as important as winning California, Florida, New York, Texas, Illinois, Pennsylvania. North Carolina. Right? Those are important states to win, because then they send their electoral college with those electoral college votes to vote for the president. All right. So there have been times when A president has won by the electoral college votes as opposed, but didn't win the popular vote. The first time was Rutherford B. Haynes back in 1876. Then again, Benjamin Harrison, George W. Bush, Trump in 2016. They all won their election without winning the popular vote, but won the electoral college vote, so therefore they were president. All right. Let's talk a little bit about modern presidents and policymaking, right? Presidents play to three various audiences, so to speak. Right? One is the Washington insiders, right? The Washington, D.C. audience. Fellow politicians, leaders, party leaders, those kind of those kind of Washington elite, Washington insiders who have a lot of say. So the presidents play to this audience. They also play to the party. Right, the party in which they're in, the Republican Party, Democratic Party, the Independent Party, whatever it is, and office holders outside of Washington, D.C., right? So, here in New York, we're pretty, we have a lot of people running for Congress. We have a lot of party activity going on right now, right? So presidents need to play to the party also, Washington insiders and also the party itself. And then to you and me, the public, right? So the president actually has three different audiences that they need to please, so to speak, right? The Washington insiders, the party activists, and the public. All right. And the presidents have they talk about this thing in the book about the bully pulpit. What does that mean? What does that actually mean, the bully pulpit? I don't like to term it, so to speak. I don't think a president, because they're president, is a bully. They could be. Doesn't mean they are. All right. So, but what they're trying to say with the bully pulpit is that presidents use the prestige and the visibility of the office of the presidency to guide and mobilize the American public. All right, they can guide the public because of who they are, how visible they are out there. All right, modern presidents make formal speeches and communicate directly with the public through events, through social media, through all these different avenues, right, to kind of guide the nation. And from the book, they call this the bully pulpit. I don't know if I actually agree with the terminology, because bully to me is a connotation that is passé. It's kind of out of favor right now. So I don't think bully pulpit is the right term, but who am I, so to speak. So what the presidents do use, who they are, their visibility as the leader of the nation, to mobilize the American public around a certain issue. Right? That's what they do. All right, the president's policy-making power, they have veto power. We talked a little bit about this and how to make a bill, right? Veto power, right? This is basically when the Congress sends a law to the president after it's passed in both chambers, but the president won't sign it. He vetoes the bill. All right, he's I'm influencing policy because it will not signed by the president, and therefore it's not made into law. All right, president must veto within 10 days of the bill's passage by Congress. All right. There's also this thing called a pocket veto. If a bill fails to become law because the president did not sign it within the 10 days before Congress adjourns, it's called a pocket veto. Doesn't say anything. It doesn't veto it. Doesn't really do anything. And then there's this last thing called line item veto, which basically is the president's ability to block a particular part of a bill. Right? They may say, I like 90% of this bill, but I just don't like this bill. So I'm going to veto this part, but let the rest of the bill go forward. Okay? And there are also these things, executive orders. All right, executive orders. Right? It's a presidential directive for a certain call to action, and it's usually within the executive branch. I mean, becoming more and more popular over the last few presidents, the executive orders. They weren't used as much previously, but with Congress being the way Congress is lately, and to get things done, a lot of times the presidents are resorting to these executive orders just to get things done. And the last thing I'll mention is signing statements. This is when the presidential document reveals what the president thinks of a new law and how it ought to be enforced. Right? We're not telling Congress what to do. I'm just telling you what I think. I think it should be. I think it's a good law, and it should be enforced, especially when it comes to whatever issues. All right. This is if there are any questions on this, comments, criticisms, you know how to get in touch with me. So please do. There'll be a second video later this week. Thank you, everybody. Take care.